Look, I said to Jake, it's not a crime or anything. There's absolutely no law against dogs going to outdoor concerts. They don't have a ticket for dogs. You know, Marco, the point of morphing is not to get us into concerts, Jake said. 9 Inch Nails, Alanis, Offspring, I said.
One of these things is not like the other things. One of these things just doesn't belong. Can you guess which thing is not like the other thing? Before I finish my song.
When I opened the book, I didn't know what I was gonna find. I saw the flashing light just coming down. Oh, what a beautiful sight. Then I was flying. Oh, Superbook. Well, I was afraid to look. Superbook. Oh, Superbook.
This is the first book narrated by Marco since he discovered that Visor 1 was his mother. Well, at least the first book that matters. Something of a subtle running theme in the books has been Marco getting more cheerful and helpful since that event. Marco's always been known as the team's goofball, and the opening of the book takes that to 11. People call me Marco the Magnificent, Marvelous Marco, the Amazing Marco, and of course, all the girls just call me Gorgeous. Okay, maybe I've never actually heard anyone call me gorgeous, but I am confident that someone, somewhere, must have called me gorgeous at some point. Or not. But definitely cute. I've heard cute with my own ears. Marco then goes on about getting a haircut for far longer than we care about. The behind-the-scenes reason for this was that they changed the model for the cover of the books, so Kay Applegate wrote in a haircut. Though somehow she forgot to write in Marco's extensive plastic surgery. The book opens with Marco convincing Jake to go to an outdoor concert in Dogmorph. At first this seems like another one of those redundant openings where some of the Animorphs do something stupid and irrelevant to the rest of the book, but to my surprise, not only does the plan go off without a hitch, it actually leads into the story. What is this book, and what have you done to Animorphs? So Jake and Marco go to the concert as dogs and spy a kid named Eric King. No, not that Eric King. He's handing out flyers for the sharing, and when he comes up to Jake and Marco, they notice that he has no smell, which is impossible. By the way, you may be asking how come we get Eric's full name in this book. I mean, the Animorphs don't give their full names. Not that that matters in the long run. Yes, we can't tell you our last names or the name of the city we live in, but we can tell you our first names, our relations to one another, the first names and careers of our immediate family members, the names of our teachers and staff at school, the fact that one of us is Visor 1's son, the fact that we live in the city where the Condrona was destroyed, the fact that we live in a city with a unique amusement park called the Gardens, the fact that we live near the woods the Yerks wanted to cut down, and the full name of one of our friends. It's called triangulation, kids. Actually, Eric King was the name of the winner of a contest Scholastics held to have his name put in an Animorphs book. Of course, most contests like this aren't offering you anything substantial, like those contests to have a walk-in role in a movie but end up being so far in the background that nobody can make you out and your scene is cut anyway, or those contests to put your name in a video game and end up putting it in a secret Easter egg room that's impossible to find and nobody cares about anyway. Fuck that, says Scholastic. When we give away prizes, we give away prizes. Congrats, Eric King. You're now a major reoccurring supporting character that is arguably the most important protagonist outside of the Animorphs themselves. Scholastics knew how to get things done. Anyway, the Animorphs get suspicious of Eric King, one for not having a scent and another for being at an Alanis Morissette concert. Marco is particularly curious as Eric was seen at his mother's funeral for some reason, acting all pissed off for some reason. The Animorphs start tracking him, and Tobias and Marco in Birdmorph witness Eric accidentally run into the side of a bus, which causes his skin to flicker and reveals something metallic underneath. Later, Axe deduces that Eric might be an android with a holographic coating, kind of like a futuristic Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. While trying to figure out what to do, Marco calls Jake over the phone. Tom picks up and brings up that the sharing is going down to the lake for some water skiing and the 9th annual sharing jailbait contest. Tom suggests Marco bring his dad down, which triggers something in Marco we haven't seen before. The Yeerks had taken my mother. They weren't getting my father. Before that happened, I'd tell him everything. Before I'd let that happen, I'd take Tom down no matter what Jake said. I'd take Tom, I'd take Chapman, I'd take every controller I knew before I'd let them have my father. I had power. Deadly animals lived inside me. Their DNA swam with my own. I could feel the rage flowing through me, the blind, violent rage that became little films in my head, little head movies of revenge and destruction. I pictured the things I would do to Tom, to Chapman, someday even to Visitor 3. I would do terrible things to them, terrible, violent things. It was a sick feeling. I was sick, and I knew it, and yet I ran those images over and over in my head. Rage is addictive, you know. I guess it's sort of like a drug. Anger and hatred get you high. They get you high, but like any addiction, they hollow you out and tear you down and eat you alive. I guess I knew all of that, but all I could think of was that they were not getting my father. So I ran the scenes of violence over and over in my head. I rode that rush of fury till at last it burned itself out and left me feeling empty and beaten. Wow, quite the contrast to the maybe too goofy Marco at the beginning of the book. When I first read this book years ago, I thought maybe Marco had some weird Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing going on, but now I recognize it for what it really is. Realizing that his mother is alive hasn't helped Marco, it's hurt him. I mentioned all the way back in my review of number 1, The Invasion, that Marco's use of comedy is largely a coping mechanism for the hardships in his life. Learning the truth about his mother meant that he had to see the war to the end. And what's happened since then? His best friend became a controller, they met an omnipotent being, they got attacked by a dust monster, they had to beat information out of Axe, and they took care of some baby animals. Life has only gotten harder since number 5, The Predator, and so Marco has got to get goofier to cope with it. But even when we understand that, his rage towards Tom in this scene is startling. What makes Marco different from Rachel, the title psychopath of the group, is how focused his rage actually is. When Rachel goes crazy, it's a wild stampede kind of crazy, without any real focus. Marco is far colder and far more calculating, and in many ways, scarier. So the Animorphs need to learn more about Eric, and that includes finding out what's under that hologram. A normal two-eyed animal isn't going to see through it, so they need something with dramatically different vision, namely a wolf spider. The plan is to scout out the Sharing's Lake get-together, have Axe and Marco morph Spider, and try to identify whatever the hell Eric is. On the way there, Axe explains the technobabble behind morphing. Basically, there's a bunch of dimensions more than just the 3 we can perceive, and one such dimension is known as Z-space. Since the laws of physics state that matter cannot be created or destroyed, Z-space basically acts as a mass you store it. If you morph something smaller than yourself, you put mass into Z-space. When you morph something bigger than yourself, you pull mass out of Z-space. While it's clearly science fiction, there's enough logic behind this process that it's a nice little addition to the series' mythology. Axe also mentions that Andalites have created the technology to fly ships into Z-space as something of a shortcut system, and mentions that if a ship were to hit the mass of someone who's morphed, that person would get yanked completely into Z-space. But then he says the odds of that happening are like billions to 1. If you'll excuse me, I feel a song coming on.
Foreshadowing, 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 foreshadowing.
So they get to the Sharing's little get-together, and everyone's having an unrealistically good time. The last lake party I went to had gone down in history as the dildo incident. No, that's not a joke. I really have screwed up friends. You know, seeing this party, I kind of wish the Sharing's operations were fleshed out more. For being the Yeerks' diabolical process of getting voluntary controllers, we still don't know exactly what it is they do. That one cult from Boy Meets World springs to mind. We need some of that. Gaining controllers through hugs.
We're just a place for people who need love in their lives.
I really have plenty of love. Thanks anyway.
Well, you're judging us, aren't you?
What?
The way your teachers, your family, and everyone else in your life judges you.
Yeah, I don't like that very much.
Because?
Because they don't really know me.
Well, why don't you get to know us before you judge us? If you do that for us, we'll do that for you.
Seems fair.